when people show up at our clinic, they're in all sorts of pain, but it's different kinds of pain. They've got headache pain. Sometimes it's more pressure, like behind the eyes, or other times it's your like migraine pain. Um, uh, but they've got all this different pressure or pain in their head, and sometimes it's pinpoint, like it's right here. And I've never had a headache where I can touch like it's exactly right here in my brain, and they're touching the spot on their head.
Welcome to Beyond the Pain, the podcast that explores what it really takes to break free from chronic pain and reclaim your life. I'm your host, Leigh Brandon, and someone who's spent over 2 decades helping people get to the root cause of pain that no one else could explain. Whether you're dealing with long-term back issues, joint pain, nerve discomfort, or mysterious symptoms that just won't go away, this show is here to help you go deeper. Because beyond the pain, there's clarity, strength, and power waiting for you. Each week, we'll uncover the physical, emotional, biochemical, and energetic causes of pain and how to transform them. Let's dive deep into this week's episode. In this episode of Beyond the Pain, I sit down with Nate Pope, a neurological occupational therapist and founder of NCX Brain Recovery, to dive deep into the hidden struggles of concussion and post-concussion syndrome. For many, lingering headaches, brain fog, and chronic pain become daily battles long after the initial injury. Nate explains why these symptoms persist, how individualized therapy protocols can make all the difference, and why so many patients are left suffering without answers. We explore how neuroplasticity allows the brain to heal, what it takes to reduce pain and headaches, and why a holistic, intensive approach to rehabilitation is key to full recovery. If you or someone you love is dealing with concussion-related headaches, persistent pain, or the fear of never feeling like yourself again, this episode offers real hope and practical strategies. Nate, welcome to Beyond the Pain. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Leigh. Great. Really glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. And Nate, could you start by sharing your personal journey? Like, what led you into neurological occupational therapy and specializing in brain recovery?
Sure. Well, my journey started out with just wanting to help work with people. I love people. Didn't know how to help. You always want to pair what you're good at with what you can do, and to make a difference. And so my path eventually led to occupational therapy after trying multiple different things, loving everything I did, but loving that the most. And started in pediatrics. I still work in pediatrics. It's been 23, this is my 23rd year coming up here. But I really started specializing in brain recovery about 12 years ago, when I just was fortunate enough to be asked to be a part of a team that was heading the research for post-concussion syndrome. Basically, anyone who's had a head injury that's like a minor TBI or a concussion, and they have symptoms that aren't resolved. So a lot of people living with, a lot of headaches and a lot of other, myriad of symptoms. And they actually have healthy brains, brain tissue, but just not working right. And so the research was fascinating to me, and I was able to join them. They were pioneering the research, and they asked me to help come up with therapy protocols that more aligned with the new research. And it was really exciting to be doing that, and also seeing the difference. That's where it really became fun for me, and rewarding. But after 8 years working with them, we had gone from just experimenting with therapies and the research to 7 months of patients lining up to try to get in from all over the world. And I just felt so bad that we couldn't serve more, because everyone we helped, almost everyone we worked with, we helped. And it was just a therapist dream job from that perspective. From a therapist perspective, I could see things that I even wanted to do better, more of a therapy-based clinic rather than a research-based clinic, which is when we decided to create NCX Brain Recovery, and that was 4.5 years ago, or a little over 4 years ago, actually. And it's just been a ride ever since. And but mostly the journey is one individual at a time, coming in, wrapping our occupational therapy brains around this individual and what they're going through and their specific symptoms, and trying to create a very individualized. A lot of brain stuff has to be individualized because there's so many things going on in there. And but if you figure out what's going on and you have a really good treatment protocol, the outcomes are awesome. And so, yeah, my journey eventually led to just how much we were able to positively influence people who, when they showed up on our doorstep, where it was sometimes often the last, stop, and from their perspective. And part of that's because they've tried everything else. A lot of the traditional approaches are just really ineffective. They're more deal with it approaches. Unfortunately, the vast majority of head injury and all the symptoms related, including all the pain stuff, which is mostly headache related, really, it's just deal with it. How do we live with it? How do we minimize it? And those approaches are super valuable after you've exhausted all of the fix-it approaches. From a therapist standpoint, your number one goal is there a way that we can totally rehab and have 100% recovery, and what are the things that we can do, or at least get as close to that as we can? And so we do all of that. Mostly in our clinic, it's almost all remedial approaches that we do. So we're really trying to get the brain to do what it's capable of doing. And anyways, I can go more into that later, but that's the journey. It got us to a point where almost 90+% of our patients are coming out with 75% reduction in the symptoms that they came in with, as per the self-report, from the patients. And that's super encouraging to us. We, when they show up on Monday, it's an intense program. They're in our clinic for many hours a day, many days in a row. Monday's a hard day, and so is Tuesday. And but by the time we get, most come for 2 weeks. And by the end of the second week, Thursday and Friday, they're saying thank you for giving us our lives back. Our symptoms are drastically reduced. Sometimes they're completely gone. Sometimes they're half gone, and most are somewhere in between that. And then we have an 8-week aftercare, which is really meant to clean up whatever symptoms we didn't get during the 2 weeks of intensive care. It's more of a home program. But anyway, just became really passionate about it because I love helping people. I'm a people guy. Have, family is my number one thing, but work is my number two. And well, yeah, family, God, and work for me. It's kind of the priority. But I really see, just a lot of changing of lives if you do the right thing with the brain. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It sounds a bit similar to me in that I tend to be a last resort for people because they feel like they've already tried everything,
yeah,
and then they come to me and I do something completely different from what they've done before.
yes,
I just want to go back. So you mentioned TBI, which I'm assuming is traumatic brain injury. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that was correct for the audience because
Yes,
some people might not know what TBI is. So we're talking about traumatic brain injury.
yes.
Cool. Awesome. So, yeah, I think it was Spider-Man, wasn't it, that said, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, it's a good quote.
I feel like, when you've got the ability to help people, I see that as a great power. And I think when you have that ability, you almost have a responsibility to help others with that power that you have.
Yes,
So
I
yeah,
feel
it's,
the
it's
same.
interesting from that perspective because it does remind me of the work that I do myself. That it is very different from conventional approaches. It is often people that feel they've already tried everything and nothing has worked.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of similarity there. So, when it comes to concussion, how can someone tell if their symptoms have moved from the short-term phase to perhaps a chronic state?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the chronic or the acute phase, which is your short-term phase, is more like from days to about a month. So anything shy of a month is in the acute stage, and at that point, research has kind of shown that we just are, depending on the person, they're just going to reset without almost without any therapy. Now, therapy helps, of course, and ensures that you reset if you're doing the right things. But after 1 month, if you have symptoms lingering, your brain seems to get to a point where it stops trying to reset, to re-engage the neural pathways that it once engaged, since they've been disrupted, and it's trying to compensate for that now. It finally decides to just continue to compensate and to do certain areas of your brain when you have a concussion go less active, getting less blood flow. And that you can see this on a functional MRI if it's someone who has a really good functional MRI and has um, an integrated system of interpreting the data, because there's a lot of functional MRIs out there that are not very valuable, don't give you as much valuable information. You have to know exactly what a normal brain looks like and where all the blood flow is supposed to be going in order to know when it's not doing the right thing. So anyway, with a functional MRI in the research, they were able to figure out when there's a concussion, certain areas get less blood because they're less engaged and active for whatever reason that happens when we hit our head hard enough. And other areas start to compensate and take over those functions. So areas that are not designed, it's cool that our brain is, that plastic and can adapt and everything, but it's not a great long-term solution because those areas really aren't designed to do those tasks. And there's almost always symptoms associated with that. And secondary symptoms often are headaches and all the pain that comes with that. But anyways, once you've been about a month after hitting your head, your brain, most people's brains just kind of settles into a pattern. The brain wants to settle into a habit, and so it stops trying to reset, and it just goes with where it's at. And it usually ends up in a compensation pattern where areas of your brain are way less active than they used to be before you hit your head, and other areas are way more active. You can see the blood flow trail with that if you get a functional MRI. And at that point, it doesn't want to reset unless you do something more intensive. And so that's why all the traditional approaches have been really ineffectual, because they are 30 minutes once a week, or a few times a week, and do this on your own at home maybe, or mostly it's medication, take this medication. And so they're very, very much deal with it approaches that don't really have any effect on post-concussion syndrome, which is what it's called. After 1 month, you're in post-concussion syndrome, most likely. Prior to that, if you're in the acute stage, if anyone is listening and ever has a concussion, you can avoid those long-term symptoms if you do the right things, or you can lessen your chances significantly of it turning into post-concussion syndrome. If you don't want to cocoon, is what we call it. That's where you go in a dark, quiet place and do nothing. You're depriving your brain of stimulation when it desperately needs it. What doctors are, the traditional advice, the parts of that advice that were correct when they used to say rest and take it easy is that you do need to reduce stress and the amount of stimulation. So you don't want to go crazy. You don't want to go back to work or back to school or back to stress right away, or bouncing up and down. That jarring. You actually need exercise and cardio to get blood to the brain, but you don't want to go jogging because that's too bouncy. You want to do like a stationary bike or swimming or an elliptical or something that's not bouncy. You need to get blood to the brain, and then going for walks outside and letting your vision, extend beyond the walls of a room, like when you're inside, gives your brain a lot more ability to be stimulated by visual information. You want to talk and walk and see. And so you want to stimulate those three major areas: vision, auditory, verbal, and then your body movement centers. You want those to all be engaged at a chill level, like not crazy. And that'll help you usually avoid that post-concussion stage. But if you end up having symptoms and it's post 1 month, you're going to need some therapy to get over it, almost for sure. Like those symptoms just stick, and you'll be deal with it approaches the rest of your life unless you do something to get the areas that are inactive to re-engage. Once they engage, then the areas that are overworking and compensating can really calm down and go back to doing their own jobs. And that takes a lot of strain off the system. You're like an overheating engine in a car. If you've got some parts not doing what they should do and other parts having to work harder, then everything you do, including therapy, if it's only a little bit here and there, is going to just rev your engine that's already compensating. Your brain's go-to is going to be that area that's already engaged and compensating, and you're just going to work it even harder. And so what you need to do is find a way to target the areas that are inactive to get those active again, so that the ones that are overworking can not have to do that anymore.
Let's take a moment to talk about real-life juggling, because Fred's story might sound familiar. He had wrist, back, and leg pain from years of running and a demanding job and family life. He didn't have time for complicated routines or cookie-cutter advice. So we kept it simple and flexible. Diet, workouts, support, and results. Fred's pain disappeared, his energy came back, and he's now using what he learned to keep building his health on his own terms. If you're busy, burnt out, and in pain, I've got something for you. Download the Chronic Pain Breakthrough Blueprint for free at www.bodycheck.co.uk/free pain guide. You can feel better without turning your life upside down. Yeah, interesting. So just to rewind again, just for the sake of the audience. So correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding of a concussion is normally when there's either a blow to the head or a fall, and the brain hits the inside of the skull and causes some kind of damage and or bleeding to the brain. Would that be accurate?
There's usually not bleeding in a concussion, but there is that impact. They used to believe, well, it's a soft organ in a hard skull, so wherever you hit, that's where you're going to have this, the effect. But what they're finding is a lot of the symptoms are associated with parts of the brain that are in the middle of the brain. And that didn't hit anything. And so what they're figuring out is it's more of an acceleration, deceleration injury where you're going at one speed and then you stop. That's like if you're in a car accident or something, maybe. Or maybe you're sitting still and something really fast hits you, also a car accident. Or sports, those are the two of the bigger ones. But it's parts of the brain are more pliable and flex better than other parts that are more dense. And so what happens is when you have that acceleration, deceleration issue, is parts speed up faster than other parts. And so you stretch the neurons in your brain. It's almost like you're just stretching everything in your brain. Even the middle parts of your brain are going to get stretched, and then they go back. But that really disconnects a lot of neural pathways and areas. And so that's why you have global effects from a concussion sometimes. They're like, well, I hit my head right here, but I'm experiencing, word retrieval issues and balance issues and vision issues. And, why do I have issues? It's almost like my whole brain got hit from every side, And it's because it's not where it hit. It's the whole brain stretching and the disruption of neural pathways. And we've learned more that any task that we do, if you look at the brain activity, the neural pathways, you maybe like right now I'm talking, so my auditory, my verbal pathways should be firing more, but you'll also see those extend all over across the brain, accessing different parts of the brain at the same time. And so it's not just one area working at a time. It's multiple areas and networks of areas working. So when you have the stretching effect in the brain, that's why it can disrupt so many different things.
Mm. That's really interesting. I'm really glad I asked that question, because I always thought a concussion was caused by let's call it collision between the brain and the skull. But actually what you're saying is it's not so much that, it's more the stretching of the neurons within the brain that's causing the loss of those neural networks.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. And that's partly why I do a podcast, right? Because I get to learn things. So that's really good. Really interesting.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned things like headaches and migraines. What are some of the other, I guess, common chronic symptoms that you might see in people after a concussion?
Sure. Well, and I understand you deal a lot with pain. And so pain's an interesting word to me, because when people show up at our clinic, they're in all sorts of pain, but it's different kinds of pain. They've got headache pain. Sometimes it's more pressure, like behind the eyes, or other times it's your like migraine pain. Um, uh, but they've got all this different pressure or pain in their head, and sometimes it's pinpoint, like it's right here, And I've never had a headache where I can touch like it's exactly right here in my brain, and they're touching the spot on their head, and it'll be a sharp pain sometimes. And anyways, but they come in with emotional pain, like they've lost themselves, they feel like, a lot of times. And depression and anxiety are very prevalent with head injuries, with post-concussion syndrome. Apathy, they've just lost motivation. Um, and the irritability, everything, their sensory systems are so out of whack that they can have, it can be visual stuff. Maybe it's just light sensitivity or noise sensitivity, but a lot of times it's just being in a room where a lot's going on and they can't process it. It's almost like a sensory integration pain, at that point. And people don't usually use the word pain with some of these symptoms that are going on. But when they come into our clinic, I feel like they're going through all sorts of things they can't describe. And to me, it's okay, you've got emotional pain, you've got physical headache pain, you've also got whiplash and actually some neck pain and back pain, maybe. Those are often associated with car accidents and sports injuries. And anytime you hit your head pretty hard, your neck's likely to be somewhat involved, Um, and then you have symptoms that are like balance, dizziness, word retrieval issues. So a lot of social stuff ends up happening because you can't process what the other person's saying quick enough to respond to it. So you decide not to interact at all, socially.
That sounds like me trying to converse in Spanish.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Well, it's almost like they forgot English. It is a little
Mm,
bit. It's parts of it because what's going through their head is, I want to say this, but I can't think. And we all have this to a little degree. Oh, I just can't come up with that word. There's a word and I can't get it. If you amplify that a few times, like 3 times or 5 times, maybe 10 times as bad, where you just can't come up with words, you can imagine how hard it would be to do anything where you're engaging, conversationally. So, um, they'll often have vision issues, blurry vision, and mostly eye doctors have not quite figured out the connections between brain injury and their vision issues, because I get a lot of question marks. I've been going to the eye doctor. They changed my prescriptions. They gave me prism glasses to try to help my eyes, do what they're supposed to. Um, and I'm like, oh, it's convergence and divergence. So the angle of your eyes pointing in or out. If I'm looking at my nose, they're going to point in a lot. If I'm looking at a mountain, they're going to go, out a lot. And the
mm,
part of the brain that controls the muscles on the outside of the eyeball that do that gets involved with concussions. Most people who have post-concussion syndrome also have some visual stuff affected. For some reason, the integration gets messed up and you've got one eye on target, but one eye off just a little bit, which creates a blurry image. Your prescription hasn't changed at all. Your eyes are still fine, but your brain is not getting the eyes at the right angle. And then it usually recognizes it, and then it'll get it at the right angle, whatever part's compensating in your brain for that part that's inactive. So then it'll be clear. So it'll be blurry and then clear and blurry and clear. So they have a lot of vision issues, um, a lot of just problem solving, decision making, attention and focus. Um, there's just so many symptoms that are typical concussion or post-concussion symptoms. I've got sleep. Yeah, sleep issues. So they either can't go to sleep, can't stay asleep, or they have a hard time waking up, or they're drowsy during the day, or they're sleeping a whole lot less than they normally did, or a whole lot more than they normally did. So sleep is just often messed up. Memory, brain fog is a big one. Most people have brain fog, plus mental and physical fatigue. Both of those are usually part of this. And if you can imagine, your brain's not working the way it's supposed to, so it's got to work a lot harder. So unfortunately, it's working a lot harder, but it's a lot less effective at what it used to do. So secondary symptoms when that happens is often the headaches. Often they're not related to a particular spot in the brain. They're related to the whole system just overheating, overworking, areas that aren't designed to do what they're supposed to do, or just working so hard, and eventually it turns into headache. Yeah.
yeah, as you were speaking earlier, I was kind of thinking, I wonder whether you have a common type, a very common type of people that come to see you. So, I was thinking athletes, it could be football, soccer, rugby, martial arts, possibly race car drivers, motorcyclists. But I was also thinking young kids fall over quite a lot as well. Do you see a kind of a common type of person that comes to see you, or is it just very, very varied?
Yeah, no, we don't actually, because everyone can hit their head. It's interesting the variety we get here. We have 7-year-old boy and a 10-year-old boy a few weeks ago, and then I think 2 weeks after that, we had two that were in their 70s, or one in their 80s and one in their 70s, I think. So the age range is all over the place. Everyone's, the older people are getting in your slip and fall kind of things happen, but more often than that, even is the car accidents happen to everybody. We'll have a whole family come in and get treated because every one of them have symptoms post 1 month that just aren't getting better. And it's because they, rolled around in the car as a family. And so we'll have mom and dad and all their kids, kind of thing. But we have a lot of sports injuries. They're getting better with soccer at telling people not to do the headers. But we still have more soccer, even I think, than football. And when I say football, I'm talking American football, so it doesn't confuse anyone out there. You're like, soccer and football are the same. Anyways, so we just anything where there's speed, so skiing, snowboarding, and then a lot of these, longboard stuff and motorized scooters and any bike stuff, road bike, mountain bike, anything, like you're just not as protected. And people feel like a helmet is their safety, but what the helmet protects against is the cracking of the skull, the superficial damage to brain tissue right where you hit, and maybe it cracks, and that's where you're worried about brain bleeds and all sorts of more serious issues even. So helmets are awesome and you need to wear them, but they don't change the acceleration deceleration issue. Your brain was still going at a certain speed and then stopped.
Well, I guess it's harder to decelerate if there's more weights as well.
Yeah.
Are
Yes.
you
Yeah.
are you familiar with Michael Schumacher?
Sounds familiar, but I don't recall.
So he was a 7 times Formula One world champion,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he had a skiing accident
Yeah.
and banged his head on a rock.
Yeah.
And apparently he was a very good skier, so I'm guessing he was probably going very fast. And well, we've not publicly been told what his current condition is, but we know he had quite a traumatic brain injury. But there's lots of rumors, as he can't speak. He's has to be cared for 24/7. I just thought you might have heard of his story and might
Yeah.
have a view on that. But if you're not familiar with him, then that's
Uh,
not a problem.
yeah. You know what? I don't do a lot of news. I'm too busy in the clinic, so I often don't hear about things. But that sounds like a moderate to severe TBI, traumatic brain injury, and those cases are a little bit different. They're not just dealing with symptoms; they're dealing with probably some permanent brain damage. And we have worked with some in the moderate category, depending on their ability to tolerate therapy, and actually had some great success. When you have permanent damage, one of our groups that we work with is stroke patients who have some permanent damage. You're trying to help the brain come up with a better way to navigate around the damaged area, because a lot of the surrounding tissue is healthy. The neural pathways are intact, but they need to be reconnected in a better. It's almost like if you were on a road and you came to some road damage driving, and there's a detour sign, so it's no problem. You can get around it. But when someone has an event, the brain has to figure it out immediately. So stroke could be an example. A more significant brain injury could be an example. And it figures out a detour that is crazy around, it's not a very quick around the road damage detour. It's a very inefficient way to navigate that, because it had to have an answer of how to function in a moment of urgency. It was kind of survival mode, and it came up with a quick way to adapt and to deal with this permanent damage. And so what patients experience when they come into our clinic is we make the brain go to that damaged area over and over again. And we also make other parts of the brain engage simultaneously so that nothing can cheat very easily. It's harder for the brain to compensate when the whole brain has to be a part of an activity. And those activities tend to help the brain find better ways to navigate the damage so that now they still have some symptoms, but they're way minimized, you know. And sometimes it can navigate around that well enough that it feels like they've recovered from that symptom, So stroke patients are probably our second most popular
Ah,
patient these days, and we don't advertise for them at all. They're finding out about us from
ah.
others that have come here and everything. So we're probably going to start marketing to that population as well. But
Can we talk about the kind of pain people often hide? The kind that affects your gut, your skin, your energy, and your confidence. Sharon, a finance professional, came to me with stomach pain, breakouts, insomnia, and exhaustion. She felt run down, bloated, and stuck in survival mode. With the right testing and a personalized plan, Sharon healed her gut, cleared her skin, started sleeping through the night, and the weight around her middle melted off without even trying. If your body feels like it's giving up on you, don't ignore the signs. Download my chronic pain breakthrough blueprint for free at www.bodycheck.co.uk/free pain guide. You can feel like yourself again.
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about stroke because one of the things that, again, I've been thinking as you've been talking, here in the UK, there's a big push, as you kind of alluded to, with regards to soccer players heading the ball, because there's been quite a few ex-players who have died with Alzheimer's and a few with Parkinson's as well. Do you feel there's any link? So, and again, where the stroke comes in as well is that obviously you've got vascular dementia as well. Do you see any link between concussions with these kind of neurodevelopmental issues?
yeah. So I listen to guys that are smarter than me a lot of times. And so I'm a therapist and not a doctor, so and I came from a research-based clinic and created a therapy-based clinic. So we're up to our eyeballs in just helping people recover and really focused on the outcomes. But I also like dabble in, I want to know what's going on out there. Most of what I hear is there's a lot of connections between Alzheimer's and a lot of those later diseases. A lot of it's genetics, and someone could live a healthy life and still end up with those things. So you never want to think like, oh, it's because I did this or that necessarily. But I think it does increase your chances. You may have, a genetic predisposition towards some of that. And then if you happen to also hit your head a lot and have head injuries, that may trigger things for you where you may not have gone that direction. So I think the big thing is when you have a concussion, is you want to recover fully before the research is showing that you're a lot less vulnerable to another head injury or to another, event in your life that's an unhealthy mental thing, like maybe that could occur later in life, like Alzheimer's. Because if you're living with parts of your brain overworking and parts of your brain not doing what they should do, and there's a big compensation pattern, and even if you just have symptoms you've learned to live with, and that's how your brain is doing things, like I just have more headaches these days, and yeah, my word retrieval is off, and so is my memory, but maybe I'm just getting older, and you have a lot of these if you go down the list of symptoms, it really helps patients when we do this because we'll go through about 40 common symptoms for post-traumatic or for post-concussion syndrome, and they'll go down and they'll be like, "Oh, that is more than it used to be. Yeah, that is," and they'll start checking a lot of those boxes and realizing that they've got a whole lot more going on than they thought, and they've just been kind of living with it. Um,
Mm. So with people with things like dementia, Alzheimer's, does the work you do improve the condition of those types of people?
so based on the principle that our brain at any time of our stage of development, from when we're a child to the day we die, has the capacity to improve. Like, we have neuroplasticity is what they call it, but it's the brain's ability to adapt and learn and to function even better. Doesn't ever end. It slows down as we get older, but there are things that we can do to improve the functioning of our brain, no matter who we are or whether we've even had a head injury or any problem. So, based on that principle, anyone that already has Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or especially if they've had a stroke, that's a very different thing. For sure, we can help that stuff usually, um, but you can help your brain be more efficient with the neural pathways that are intact and working, and you can find ways to navigate around the areas that are maybe weak and not working as well. What we do when we get older is we start to compartmentalize our activities. So we don't do activities as much that require balance and movement at the same time that it requires us to think and problem solve and remember and to speak, to talk, engage in conversation, and that's really visually engaging, where we're tracking or converging on things that we're seeing. So it allows our brain to do the same thing. It compartmentalizes it. It really wants to, I'll just do one thing at a time kind of thing. And a lot of us would be a lot healthier, and our brains would be more optimized for their potential if we were doing more activities that were what we call multi-sensory integration activities. And that means we're involving multiple areas of our brain simultaneously. It sounds exhausting when saying it like that, but really it's like if I'm going for a walk outside and I'm on uneven terrain, for example, my brain now has to think about foot placement. Where am I going? What am I doing with my feet? I don't want to trip and fall, etc. So now my vestibular and proprioceptive systems, those are the centers that keep us balanced and upright and let us know where we are in space. They have to be firing at a high level. Well, now while I'm on that walk on uneven terrain, what if I'm engaged in conversation? Maybe even thoughtful conversation with a friend or someone. And now my verbal auditory centers have to be firing at the exact same time. And that means those two systems have to work well together and integrate. Now, what if I'm also on that walk and I am visually trying to not just go tunnel vision, but I'm trying to appreciate the environment I'm in, and I'm looking intentionally, I'm trying to take everything in, almost to the level of like Sherlock Holmes on a walk, like detective level of observation skills. So if someone was doing something like that, just going for a walk with a friend, talking on uneven terrain, and paying attention to what they're looking at, something as simple as that could really ensure that a lot of your brain is not going to work in a compartmentalized way, but it's actually going to integrate all of these areas. When they integrate and work well together, they really offset the effects of some of these old age diseases, and really help any of us. But it's definitely something we do with all of our brain recovery aftercare program. I have people doing activities like that to ensure that they maintain all the progress we've gained and build on it. So,
Yeah, it was interesting. As you were speaking, then I was thinking maybe I need to start singing when I'm playing tennis.
now that one you might get in trouble with, because tennis people are very particular. You do not talk. If you
Yeah,
took up
people don't want to
pickleball,
hear my singing voice either. It's not great.
It would work with pickleball probably because they're a lot.
Yeah, pickleball is very noisy, isn't it?
Yeah, they don't care as much.
Yeah. But I mean, I was just thinking of tennis because you are using a lot of different senses.
Yes.
You know, you've got auditory, you've got your visual, you've got kinesthetic. Obviously, the only thing you're not really using is your verbal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and interestingly, there are studies to show that out of all the sports, tennis is the one that creates the biggest longevity,
Yes.
which is
Except for
quite
pickleball.
interesting.
Pickleball is now overtaking it, just so you know.
Right. Yeah.
But people don't want to hear that if they're tennis
Not
lovers.
tennis people, no.
But both, they say racket sports, there's so much, you have to process information quicker. So they really categorize the research that I've read most recently is they throw all the racket sports into a category because you're moving your body in multiple planes of movement. You have to have a high awareness of where your body is in space. Visually, you're processing stuff at a higher speed. So you have to really, it helps that processing speed and the visual motor integration. And then if you can work in the verbal auditory, it's great. Usually it's just calling the score at the end of a point, or it's calling out balls if you're in doubles.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, mine,
Yeah, that's true.
yours, out, you know, being more verbal that
True.
way. But yeah, they're really great. So,
Yeah, I would imagine paddle tennis would be the most stimulating because obviously it's more it's almost got four dimensions if you like because you've got the backboards as well.
yeah,
Like to
yeah,
gauge where you are in space and time is even more important.
yep,
But yeah, that's more popular than pickleball in Europe
yes, yeah,
is paddle tennis. But
yeah, yeah. Pickleball's
yeah,
taken over America right now. It's the fastest growing sport
yeah,
out
I'm
here.
sure the USTA are happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. But you want to pick something that's a lifelong sport because, and I tell people that are younger, I'm like, hey, get into, tennis or pickleball or some of these things because guess what? You can do that when you get older. And if you find something that you love and that you're passionate about and that you can do from when you're a teenager to when you're 80 years old, that's a huge advantage for you, to be able to have something like that. And it's very awesome for the brain. So,
Let's take a quick break because this story might resonate if you're someone who loves to push your limits, only to be pulled back by pain. Stephen was a banker and an aspiring Ironman triathlete. Every time he trained hard, whether for ski season or for triathlon, he'd get knocked back by injury. He felt stuck in a cycle of effort followed by disappointment. After working together on a holistic plan that fit his lifestyle, Stephen not only had the best ski season ever, but he also completed his first Ironman. And he did it pain-free. And he even referred a friend who went on to run his fastest marathon time yet. If pain keeps stealing your progress, download my free chronic pain breakthrough blueprint at www.bodycheck.co.uk/free pain guide. You deserve to train without setbacks. So, just moving on, can you explain what the NCX Brain Recovery is and how it can help people living with these long-term symptoms?
sure. So, NCX Brain Recovery, it started as Neuroconnections Brain Recovery Center, but that's a mouthful, and we quickly figured out we needed to abbreviate. So, NCX Brain Recovery, we specialize in helping concussed brains and brain injuries. But what's ended up happening is that there's very few intensive programs out there for anything brain related. And when I say intensive, patients come to our clinic. They are here 7 hours a day, usually for 2 weeks, with a weekend break in the middle. So that's 10 days and you get an hour lunch break in the middle. So it's really 6 hours of therapy, Monday through Friday, week one, 6 hours a day therapy, Monday through Friday, week 2. And so you're getting 60 hours in 2 weeks of therapy. Now, some of that has to be brain breaks because you just can't be active and engaged the whole time. But they're very targeted brain breaks to try to get the brain to reset, rest, and recover so it can handle the next challenge, and we kind of cycle through that. But patients will typically come in with a myriad of symptoms. Hey, I hit my head. I have all these symptoms. And we do a free consultation. So we really want people to first be educated and learn what their options are. And sometimes it's not post-concussion syndrome. I send them somewhere else, so I think it's a great free service. If anyone's having symptoms, hey, come in, let's talk about it. Let's see if we think what you've got is what we can help. So that's the first step. And then if it is post-concussion syndrome or a stroke or we've actually been working with depression and anxiety and a lot of other things too, where they haven't had any success with other methods. Then we'll say, okay, you're appropriate for our program. Let's set it up. And they come in. Usually it's for 2 weeks. And they'll start at like 9 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. Most of what they do is on their feet, engaged with activities that are multisensory integration activities that involve multiple areas of their brain, getting them all to work at the same time. And so they'll be, doing something with balance or motor planning, moving their body while we're maybe throwing a ball. So they have to visually, track the ball. Maybe they're crossing their body. So right to left, we throw it to the left side. They catch it with their right hand and vice versa. And so we get a lot of cross hemispheric activation is what we call it. We want both hemispheres to really engage simultaneously as well. And then we start that session, I forgot to mention, with cardio. So we want to get fresh blood to the brain first in a natural way. Cardio is the best way to get it naturally there. And so we get there, it brings a lot of fresh oxygen, which a lot of neuro connections require that increased oxygen. You're really priming the brain to learn and to make connections. And then we'll do all these multisensory activities. That's about an hour and 15 minutes of engaging the brain, trying to make areas that are less active engage again. And then you have to take a brain break. And we have a massage chair, we have massage therapists, we work on the neck and head stuff. We want, if they're dealing with headaches, for example, we don't want to ignore the fact that maybe it's just these tight neck muscles and maybe restriction of blood flow in and out of the brain because of all the tightness, in the neck. So we'll do suboccipital release. We really try to release up higher there. We found a lot of techniques that kind of help with that. And then we want them to just kind of relax but not go to sleep. We have brain waves, which there's some science behind that. So they're listening to brain waves that help their brain go from a beta active frequency into more of the alpha waves, which is more rest and recovery. They found most of memories encoded during alpha mode. So we really process the challenge we've been through better if we get into that alpha mode. All college students after classes should do brainwaves so they can go into alpha and process what they just learned, to have a break between the challenge. But anyway, we'll do the challenge, hour and 15 minutes, about 20 to 30 minutes brain break, and then we just repeat that cycle. And you have 4 active cycles throughout a day, and then that's repeated every day throughout the weeks, throughout the 2 weeks. And so by the end, most patients are reporting a 75% reduction in symptoms. That's like average. So our younger patients are more like 80, 90s, or some of them 100%, like I'm good. And we're like, well, you're good, but we want to make sure you maintain it. So we have an aftercare program that starts after they finish those 2 weeks. And it's an 8-week aftercare program where we want to follow retention of the progress we make is also a goal of ours, and also building on that. you'd be surprised at how many people are so happy. They come through and they're like, 75% of my symptoms are gone, but they're not satisfied. And neither are we. And we should, like, now they realize, oh, recovery is possible. What do I do for that remaining 25%, And that's why we have an 8-week aftercare program too. So it's to maintain what we've gained, but also build on that. Our goal is always to get to 100%. When you have post-concussion syndrome, you have a healthy brain that's not working right. 100% recovery is most of the time possible. So that's what we always work towards. And also building life. You're going to build a lot of lifelong habits that are really brain healthy, some lifestyle change stuff going on. We try to, because we're occupational therapists, we also really try to tailor everything to someone's interests, their hobbies, the activities they enjoy and love, the routines that they want to do, and connect with all of those things that they love and with their roles in life, the things they really care about, and usually if your aftercare home exercise program is really tied to things people already love and enjoy, you're just tweaking them a little here and there. They're going to be a lot more consistent with it. It's be more meaningful, and it'll be a lot more effective in the long run. So that's kind of what we
Mm,
do here at NCX Brain.
mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess to summarize, so the concussion is the stretching of, let's call it, the nerves in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's halting those neural networks from connecting. And what you're doing is you're putting, let's call it, stressors through the body, or stimuli, let's call it stimuli,
Mm-hmm.
to light up the entire brain to reconnect those neural pathways. Would that be correct?
Correct. Yep. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Good summary.
Is there anything that people can do? Let's say someone's, I don't know, let's say someone's booked in to see you in 2 months' time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything they can do within those 2 months to improve their own situation?
Prior to coming in, if they're going to come in with us. Yeah, we get asked this all the time, actually. They're like, okay, I'm booked, because we're almost a month and a half, right, booked out right now. And so if someone's scheduling, they're like, what do I do in the meantime? Now, I'm careful not to give them too many things that are going to be like, 30 minutes or an hour a day kind of things, because I know that's what they've already been doing with therapies everywhere else. And it's been exacerbating problems a lot of times because your brain's go-to is going to be that area that's already overworking. And so giving them exercises to do ahead of time is going to make them probably overwork what's already engaged in compensating for the areas that aren't working or that aren't as active. But what someone can do is without with symptom exacerbation being your guide, like not exacerbating things too much, is to start getting in better physical shape just by doing some non-jarring cardio, maybe like a stationary bike, because when you do come to the clinic, the more we can get your body to move, the more we can engage that brain. And if someone comes in and they're really out of shape, we can still work with that and have great success and everything. We're totally comfortable with them, but we have noticed the outcomes are better for people who come in and are already physically able to tolerate being on their feet and doing cardio multiple times a day. And so if you can find a way that doesn't exacerbate your symptoms too much and get some cardio, then that's great. If it exacerbates it too much, then you may have to wait, because you may have your fight or flight system may be kicking in when you start to exercise, and it's not calming down quick enough. And so we can help with that in the clinic. But if it tolerates it, then you can start building up your cardio. Also going on walks outside and just kind of engaging, keeping everything somewhat active is hopefully going to be helpful as well.
Awesome. That's great. What's on the horizon for you, Nate? You've got anything in the pipeline?
Well, right now, growing the clinic, I think you mentioned this before. There's a responsibility that comes with power. And when you realize you can help someone in a big way, you've there just feels like we need to be bigger than we are. And we I would normally just be satisfied with, I just want to do my own little clinic and help the people that, I can help. But seeing how many people need help in this way, and how many, and the significant improvement most of our patients make, I'm just feeling a pressure to expand and grow. And so on the horizon is clinic number 2, clinic number 3, and so on and so forth. We want to, when you grow, you want to make sure you maintain the quality of what you do. So we want to do it in a smart way, but we've pretty much nailed down our processes. So we're kind of to the point where we want to start expanding. So
Awesome. That's great. And if someone wants to connect with you or learn more about your work, where's the best place for them to go?
NCXBrainRecovery.com. Just go to our website, and you can set up a free consultation on there. We can do it virtually. Most of our patients are coming from somewhere other than where we're at. Many in the States, many outside of the States. So we can do it all virtually. And so we can set up a consultation. We just chat about what's going on and figure out if there's a way that we can help you. And we like to make that part free and really no pressure. It's more just about education. But that's the best way to find us, is to go on our website, ncxbrainrecovery.com, and then setting up a free consult is probably your best first step.
Awesome. That's great. Hey, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned new things, which is always great. As I said, it's partly why I do a podcast, is to learn. So I've learned about concussion today, which is great. But yeah, just really thank you for sharing your time with the audience today.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. So that's it from Nate and me for this week. But be sure to tune in, same time, same place, next week on Beyond the Pain. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Pain. If this episode resonated, please follow the show, leave a review, or share it with someone you know who's been struggling. And remember, pain is not permanent. With the right insight and support, you can turn it into power. Until next time, stay open, stay strong, and keep moving beyond the pain.